Dan, tell me about Operation Halcyon. What'd you do?
Operation Halcon.
Halcon.
Halcon, Halcon, Falcon in Spanish. So drug runners were flying airplanes from Central America and Colombia and all, loaded with dope, up to just south of the United States or the Arizona-Mexico border. And they would land short um, because they know that U.S. Customs with the aerostats and our intercepted jets that we had, we would catch them if they tried flying into the United States with the dope. So yeah, no big deal. So they would land short and drop the load off on the dirt road out in the desert. Their mules would pick it up and then walk it across the border there in Arizona and such. Halcon was for us to take our Citation 550s interceptors. It had the F-16 radar, the same radar as the F-16 fighter jet, and then an infrared FLIR camera and a recording system, law enforcement, and then satellite and the other the radios, law enforcement radios, FMs. Other than that, it was your standard jet. It would normally carry about 8 to 10 people, but we only had it set up for 4 seats: pilot, co-pilot, radar or the sensor operator, and then a host nation rider. So remember, we are going to be taking a United States law enforcement asset and patrolling in Mexico's airspace. So they required for us to carry a host nation rider, a Mexican law enforcement agent, PGR, to ride with us when we're in their country and all. And the really funny thing about it is that there was 4 of them, and literally they all had, we called them the Ninja Turtles because is Raimundo, Raphael, the other 2, Donatello. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Even when I showed up, they said, "Yeah, we call them the Ninja Turtles." I'm like, "Oh, bullshit!" And I go, "No, this is their names. Hey, Raphael. Hey, Raimundo. Hey, Donatello." I mean, it was just like God. Really nice guys, except for one of them. He actually had turned bad. But so when we would fly, we would be based out of Davis-Monthan Airport, Davis-Monthan Air Base in Tucson, Arizona. We would take the jet, fly it into Mexico, and we would get radar vectors for a target that we, U.S. Customs, had been tracking since Colombia, Central America, or even Mexico. It was flying and was going to land short of the border, and that was from our AMOC, Air and Marine Operations Control Center, out of Riverside, California. They're hooked into all the radars and ATC radars and the aerostats, the big dirigible blimps along the border, and with radar. And so they would give us what we call bogey dope, and we'd launch, fly into Mexico. They would say, target 180 at 75 miles. We would use our radar, find them, lock them up on our radar, and then we would go around them on a big arc coming up around them. Now, this is at night, so we're dark ships is what we called it, but no lights on whatsoever, no transponder, or it's Squawk the Parrot. We'd turn that off, and then we would get behind these planes with the FLIR. We would ID them, and then we would ride up on them, get within about 5 feet or so underneath their tail, and then slide a little bit right, look at the tail number, look at the airplane and such, slide a little to the left, look at the tail number, look at the plane, in the windows. Sometimes you can see the dope piled up in the windows and such. And then they would end up, we would back off a couple of miles.
When you're doing that, did they know you're there?
No, that's why we do that. Yeah, and that's why you can't get in closer than about 5 feet because the bow wave on the jet would push that airplane
but 5
forward.
5 feet is so close.
Oh yeah, well yeah, and then so we'd back up, calling the numbers. They said, "Oh yep, that's what they reported left from wherever it is that we've been tracking all that." So now we got positive ID. We'd back way off, and then the really wildest thing, the first time I saw it was so on the radar they would sit there and we would see closure rates and their altitude. And sure enough, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, he's slowing down and he's coming down. And we're like, oh, shoot. So we back off and he's about to make the landing. So we're slowing down, and he's slowing down and coming down. And then looking out over the dash. This is at night, pitch black out there, and all of a sudden, you see like, oh wow, there's these little lights coming on in the middle of the desert. And we looked under the flare, and sure enough, it's a truck, pickup truck, was driving down this dirt road, and the guys were turning on the smudge pots, the little fires,
Yeah.
and those were the landing lights. And then sure enough, the plane would land. We would circle, we'd say hi, a couple thousand feet up, and just film it and all. The host nation rider would call the Mexican army out of Hermosillo, and they would end up being a what do you call it? They would end up doing they would launch not the Black Hawk, the Huey, and their army guys to that spot. And we'd be watching this whole thing, and they're unloading, the dope off the airplane onto the truck and all that. And then sure enough, the Huey would come in, like, caramba, everybody run, and all this. And, so they stop everybody and all that. And we're circling, and then we're like, now I spoke Spanish. And then, host nation rider would say like, hey, all right, we don't see any stragglers out in the brush or anything like that. The FLIR, looks like you got them all. How much dope is it? And they'd say, oh yeah, it's 1,000 pounds. And I'm like, and so, all right. So then we head home to Davis Moffett, land. He would get on the phone with the PGR and AFI down in the embassy. And I could hear him saying like, yeah, how much is it? And he's going, we're like, oh yeah, no, it's 500 pounds. And then we're like, wow. And then the next morning when you got the report, it was 100 pounds. Yeah. So the whole time everybody's taking their load. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but it was fun. That and down to South America and all that. And
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, it's crazy because essentially what you're doing is a long air surveillance from,
Yes.
in some cases, from Colombia all the way up to Miami or Florida, the Everglades.
Yeah,
It's just crazy that what you guys are doing. It's so interesting.
yeah, and that's why I love the job. Like I said, it was the ultimate flying and shooting club because we had automatic weapons, pistols. I had 2 pistols, a shotgun, and an M4. Yeah, and I know how it is at range day. You load up on ammunition and Jimmy crack corn. It's just out of control. And all the places that Super Bowl security support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just all sorts of. The missions were so varied.